Good morning. I'm Ruth Van Lillian, the minister of this congregation. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Tuscaloosa, a covenantal community founded on love and a common devotion to our free faith. We recognize all the earth as sacred ground, and we welcome each other into this virtual space. We especially welcome those visiting with us. We're so glad that you are here this morning. We invite you to connect with us through the comments or via our website or Facebook page. We join with all member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association in affirming and promoting our 7 principles, including the inherent dignity and worth of every person, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, and the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. We bear witness to the pain and suffering of persons of color in our communities and across our country, and we continue in our commitment to fight injustice and to search for ways to build a better world. Black Lives Matter.
Good morning. I'm Steve Borelli. I'm the lay service leader for today. If you want to follow along, you can access our order of service through the link below in the comment section. If you're not seeing the comment section or the link, if you're watching us on a smart TV, for example, you can use YouTube. Go to our Congregation of Tuscaloosa YouTube channel through the YouTube app on your PC or your smartphone or your tablet. There's also a number of important announcements in the order of service, so I encourage you to read it carefully. Our church website and Facebook page also have information about upcoming online activities. And finally, we have a listserv that's called NewsNet that members and friends can use to keep up to date on church activities. So we leave no stone unturned in trying to keep everybody up to date. We also invite you after the service, immediately following the service, to an online coffee hour, which will enable us to fellowship with each other and build community. You can see the link for the online coffee hour, again, in the comment section below, or if you're on NewsNet, in the email that you received recently about today's service. The prelude prepares us for today's service.
We invite you to light a chalice of your own at home. This might be a simple candle in a bowl or something more elaborate you have made or purchased. We light this chalice as a beacon of our faith and as a reminder of our commitment to a free and responsible search for the truth and meaning. We worship together though we are at distance. by celebrating that which is sacred to us individually and collectively.
Our opening words are call and response. I invite you to respond at home. We are seekers of truth. We welcome you to come in out of the storms of your lives. We are seekers of truth. We invite you to set aside disillusionment and disappointment. We are seekers of truth. Let go of what is artificial and false. We are seekers of truth. Leave behind the seductions and deceptions. We are seekers of truth. Here, your minds and your hearts can be opened. We are seekers of truth. We search together responsibly for truth and meaning. We are seekers of truth. In the clear light of truth, we will find freedom. We are seekers of truth.
Faith of the heart, true liberty, source of the light expanding, love of the church, that is to be, all bondage notwithstanding. Faith of the free, by thee we live, by all that givest and shalt give, the loyalty commanding, heroes of faith in every age, passing self-denying, wrought and increasing heritage, monarch and creed defying. Faith of the free, in mighty name, the costly heritage we claim, their living and their dying. Faith for the people everywhere, whatever their oppression, love all who make the world more fair, living their faith's confession. Faith of the free, martyr of light, thy law, thy liberty, thy light shall be our blessed possession.
When we gather in loving community, we remember that we do not travel this earth alone. We share our lives as we light candles and hold each other in meditative thought and reverence. I will light a candle in my home as you light a candle in yours, and we will observe a moment of silence while you share your joys and burdens in the comments below and engage with each other in celebration and condolences.
This morning, we are lighting a candle for Teresa's father, Charlie. He has a compression fracture in his back. And Sharon is recovering well from kidney stones. Sharon's young nephew is recovering from COVID-19 and looking forward to getting to school. Bobby's nephew David died unexpectedly at the age of 52. Selena started a new job in Party City. And let us remember our siblings at the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Bradford in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Their building was partly damaged during the protests, and the difficulties that they're having. And we want to think of all the people involved, the families. It's a very difficult situation. Let us keep them in our thoughts and prayers. And finally, I want to light a candle for all the concerns and all the joys that went unspoken today. Let us spend a moment in silence, and I'll close us with a few words. When life is chaotic, let us seek calm. When life is noisy, let us seek quiet. When life is uncertain, let us remember what we know. We know that we are connected in this community, that even apart, we are still together. Amen. Shalom. Blessed be. Good morning, dear ones. I'm so glad you could join us today. I have a story for you. Once, there was a wonderful little boy. He loved to pretend to be a superhero, and he asked his dad to make him a cape. His dad made him a wonderful, long, red, flowing cape that tied around his neck and flew out behind him as he ran around. Pretty soon, everyone was calling him Little Red Super Cape. Little Red Super Cape was running around the yard, saving the world one day when he heard his dad call. He bounded into the house. "What can I do for you, Dad?" His dad said, "I've just baked this delicious loaf of bread, and I want you to take it to your grandma. She's not feeling well." His dad put the bread in a big basket and handed it to Little Red Super Cape, and off he went. It was just a few doors down the street, and he felt like such a big boy going by himself. Pretty soon he was at Grandma's door. Bang, bang, bang. He heard his grandma call out, "Come in." In he went. "Where are you, Grandma?" "I'm back here in the bedroom." He ran back to her bedroom, and there she was, all tucked up in bed with the covers way up high. "Grandma, I brought you some bread Dad made. It smells so good." "Oh, thank you, dear. You can just put it down. Now come closer." So he came over, and he looked at his grandma. She looked so strange like that. "Grandma, what big ears you have." "Oh, well, that's the better for me to hear you with, my dear. Come closer." And he took another step, and he studied her, and he said, "Grandma, what big eyes you have." "Oh, well, that's the better for me to see you, my dear. Come closer." And she reached out her hand from under the covers, and he reached over, and he took her hand. It was so warm. And as he looked at her, he looked a little over her shoulder. His eyes got really big, and he said, "Grandma, what big bookshelves you have." "Oh, yes, that's where I keep all my books. You know how I love to read and learn. Would you like me to read to you and learn something today?" "Oh, yes, Grandma." And Little Red Super Cape bounded over, and he pulled a book off the shelf that looked fun and interesting. And she scooted over in the bed, and he climbed up next to her. Grandma put her arm around him, and they opened the book, and she began to read while he looked at the pictures. And Little Red Super Cape thought to himself, "Oh, one day I'll be able to read for myself, and it'll be so much fun. I'll be able to read anything I want, and then I can learn even more. Learning is so much fun." Because learning is an important way that little superheroes grow into super people. Have a great week. Bye-bye.
When a heart is place, when our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place.
Out of gratitude for all we've been given and all we have now, we share our resources because we love and trust one another, and because this church enriches our lives and empowers us to make our whole world better. We rely upon each other, members and friends, and we appreciate the payment of pledges and generous donations to support the legacy, vision, and work of this church community. Contributions may be made through PayPal by using the link below in the description, or by mailing checks to UUCT. All undesignated contributions will be divided between our Split the Plate partner and our congregation. Our Split the Plate partner for this month is shown on the screen as you're listening to this. Please mark your pledge payment to UUCT in the comments field on PayPal or the memo line of your check. If you prefer to write a check directly to our partner organization, please mail it directly to the address we include in the description of this video. The offertory music will continue in this window as you open a new window to make your contributions. By the generosity of our hearts and the work of our hands, our love is made real. Thank you for your generous gifts.
Unitarian Universalists are people who will defend to the death everyone's right to believe what they want, even if they have no idea what it is. My son Liam made that declaration in a class exercise when he was about 16. He was trying to be funny and clever, of course, but many a truth, as they say, is spoken in jest. My experience in 15 years of Unitarian Universalist immersion is that many of us are far better at articulating what we don't believe than what we do. So many of us arrive at our congregations as walking wounded from previous church experiences. So many have been abused emotionally, intellectually, spiritually, and sometimes even worse. So many have compared the theologies of their religious upbringings to the lived experience and found some or all of those theologies lacking. A friend told me how, as a boy, he drove his pastor crazy with unanswerable questions about the Bible, which he was taught was inerrant. If Adam and Eve were the only people in the world, where did their sons find wives to marry? If Jesus converted gallons of water into wine, why do you keep telling me it was grape juice? Why does the Bible say to calculate the circumference of a bowl using the number 3, when I learned in school that pi is equal to 3.14, and on and on? So many of us have laundry lists of theological positions we reject wholeheartedly. Many of them have to do with teachings about the value of human beings relative to one another. Men are superior to women. Wealthy are superior to poor. Whites are superior to non-whites. Other teachings on our lists have to do with sex, Sex outside of marriage is wrong. Sex between anyone other than traditionally male and female is wrong. Questioning one's sexual identity is wrong. Sexual acts which are not procreative are wrong. Having sex while wearing black leather with lavender feathers and swinging from a chandelier is wrong. Oh, sorry, I got carried away. We embrace Unitarian Universalism, often having rejected much of what we were taught in our religious upbringing, but unsure what to do next. We are elated to discover the fresh air of free faith. Hurrah! Breathe in that freedom. Woohoo! Now I can believe whatever I want and no one will judge me. Except, how will I figure out what I do believe? How will I figure out my new theology? Do I even need a theology at all? Does it matter what I believe? Most of us would probably agree that human beings do develop beliefs, and those beliefs are shaped over time by what we are taught, what we experience, what we observe. As we grow and age, our beliefs shift. They are mingled with our morals and ethics, our worldview, our traditions. Our system of beliefs with greater or lesser organization is our personal theology. And yes, it matters what we believe a great deal. And don't make the mistake of thinking that theology is all about believing in God. You can believe in any kind of God or gods, or believe there is no God at all, and that is part of your theology. Your theology deeply affects how you live and how you interact with other people. For instance, I identify as a skeptical panentheist. This means that I believe the divine is present everywhere and in everything, though I acknowledge that this may be a delusion on my part, and I can live with that. Believing that means believing that the divine is present in every person without exception. And because I feel compelled to honor the divine, I have a theological mandate to honor all persons, even the ones I don't like, even the ones I disagree with, even the ones whose behavior I find abhorrent. An atheist secular humanist is unconcerned with divinity, believing such to be merely a human construct without any evidence to support its validity. They believe in an inherent goodness of all human beings, which may be more or less obvious in behaviors and expressions. They also believe in human potential to grow beyond our current state and create a better life and a better world together. This atheist humanist also has a theological mandate to honor all persons and respect their inherent worth. So the theist and the atheist, who come from such different theological positions, find themselves on the common ground of believing in the inherent worth and dignity of all human beings. And here we are, at the first of our 7 Unitarian Universalist principles. But what of the many wounded, skeptical persons who arrive at the doors of UU congregations seeking the freedom from discarded, destructive belief systems? How do they find their own theology? Some come having already sifted through the ideas, the teachings, the scriptures, and they have kept what they found useful while discarding the rest. Others are less certain. And there are an increasing number with no religious background at all who have no real idea what they believe. Does it matter? Does it matter what any of them believe? Our third principle calls for both acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth. And our fourth principle lifts up the search for truth and meaning. Neither acceptance nor growth can happen outside of an active search for truth and meaning. There's a beautiful plant growing in our backyard. I have no idea what it is. It's a sort of vine with two different kinds of leaves. The ones toward the bottom look for all the world like, well, chicken feet tracks. And the leaves toward the end growth have a more fern-like appearance. I have admired it since we moved to this house 15 years ago, but I don't have much time or talent for tending such things. And this plant has just been on its own all these years. Then, this summer, I discovered a little sprig growing in a crack of the driveway. And as I was about to pull it up like any weed, I realized it was the same plant. So I grabbed an old flower pot still filled with soil. I pulled out the carcass of whatever poor plant I had failed to care for in months past, and I carefully pulled up the little sprig and nestled it in its new home. I even watered it, and it is growing. But I know that unlike the plant in the yard, this one will require tending if I want it to continue growing. And I think I really do. Our inner development is like that. Our theological belief system will not grow much without making an effort to tend it. Truth and meaning will not reveal themselves unless we make the effort to search for them. We cannot truly accept one another without a foundation of what we believe about human beings. We cannot encourage spiritual growth if we have no idea what it means to be spiritual or to grow spiritually. Why do we need to search for truth and meaning? Surely a basic, shallow sense of right and wrong we can just absorb from daily interactions and cultural exposure. That surely is sufficient to lead a satisfactory life, right? Well, ask yourself two questions. Are you really satisfied with your life? And are you really satisfied with the lives of other people as you observe the world around you? If you have a life which is largely satisfying for you, in which the search for truth and meaning may seem more of an interesting intellectual exercise to enjoy in your spare time, is that good enough for you? We have only to turn on the TV or look at our news feeds to see that most people are not living satisfying lives. Most people are struggling every day for survival. That is their truth, and they don't have any spare time to consider what meaning they might find in it. Well, we don't have to understand or develop our theology in order to help others, right? We can support causes, march in protest against injustice, and vote for better candidates, and give money to good causes, and contribute groceries for the food drive. We can do these things to make the world better. What does that have to do with our theology? Well, everything, actually. If you are doing any of these things, it is because somewhere in your mind and heart, you believe that making the effort to help people in need and to right wrongs is good and desirable. We do these things because they feel right. But do we really understand why they are right? Do we have a personal theology that is developed enough to undergird our effort to make the world better? In its report on widening the circle of concern, the Commission on Institutional Change, created by the Unitarian Universalist Association, laments that amidst the diversity of theologies represented in our congregation, justice work has been a proxy for what we believe in some congregations, while in others, engagement with the intellectual, debate, and social ties have been the substitute. Our justice work without theological resources and spiritual practices leads us down the path of burnout. What we believe matters because if we are not acting out of strongly held convictions, we will not last in our work to make the world better. We will burn out. We will give in to entropy and fatigue and cynicism. What's the point, we'll say? It never ends. Nothing really changes. How quickly do we get to the me and mine philosophy and give up on everyone else? To accept the world as it is to participate in the injustice. There is no neutral ground. Either we are participating in racist systems of oppression or we are fighting against them. Either we support the marginalization of transgender, homosexual, binary, and other sexually non-conforming persons, or we are actively trying to include and center their voices and experiences. Either we are working to save the earth or we are helping to destroy it. One of our celebrated Unitarian Universalist theologians, James Luther Adams, said that liberalism must no longer be confused with lax, uncritical, or mere broad-based attitudes, least of all in an age of rising tyrannies of the right and the left. The aim of religious awareness, religious faith, religious community, and religious life must be radical change. Radical change cannot take place unless we understand why we believe in such change. The why is at the crux of our theological development. If there is no theological position pushing our convictions, our efforts to make radical changes to the world will not hold up. Like the little sprig in my driveway, our justice work will shrivel up from lack of nourishment and attention if we don't feed it through spiritual and theological growth. During this time of virtual church, we may have to work a little harder to find ways to nourish our spirits. We certainly have to think a bit differently, and meeting online has a certain artificiality to it that we find dissatisfying. But it's so important that we work on this inner growth. Injustice is all around us. Most of us are still leading lives of privilege, and the pandemic has pushed us to insulate ourselves even more from the world around us out of necessity. The widening report reminds us that if we really believe the theology behind our 7 principles, then we have a theological mandate to work for the radical changes that will dismantle white supremacy and other systems of injustice. We must make the effort to explore and develop our personal and our collective theologies. We must strengthen the foundation for our justice work. We want to change the world, don't we? What we believe really matters. Amen. Shalom. Blessed be.
There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my soul. still in me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my heart. There's a river flowing in my heart, and it's still in me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my heart. There's a river flowing in my mind. There's a river flowing in my mind, and it's still in me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my mind. There's a river flowing. There's a river flowing. There's a river flowing in my soul.
Please read the words in the order of service along with me. As we extinguish this chalice flame, let us remember that we carry the light within ourselves, which brings healing to a broken world and hope for the days ahead.
Neighbors and kindred, justice work is not always easy, but it is absolutely necessary. During these difficult times, let us remember that we are still working for justice. Go in peace.